Well, I'd like to take this opportunity. I know last Friday I spoke to you about Mitch Browning, but I get the opportunity to introduce you to Mitch. And to me, it's exciting. And I talked to you about him. I think I've mentioned to you that I believe he's obviously a proven football coach, as a position coach, as a coordinator. And, you know, Mitch and my relationship goes way back, and, you know, it's built on more than a friendship. It's built on respect. I've watched, as he's watched me, I've watched him, the development, you know, and the accomplishments that Mitch has gathered throughout his career, that I think it's exciting for me to bring him on our staff. And I know, as I mentioned about him, he'll demand excellence, and I really just, I look forward to getting started with him and watch him go to work. So with that said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to hear from Mitch.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning. It's great to see everybody here. Nice turnout. You know, obviously, see Coach Mack walk in. It was just a little less than 20 years ago that Syracuse was playing for a national championship, and at least if I have my numbers right. And, you know, I've been asked a lot, why Syracuse, with some of the numbers that we've produced. And I really believe that this program is not that far away. You know, I also believe that you look at the Big East Conference, if there's a conference that you could jump from the bottom to the top, I think the opportunity for this program, it's got a great nucleus of young players at the skilled positions. You got a proven quarterback coming back in Andrew Robinson, an extremely tough, competitive leader, which I think is critical. They get a good nucleus of young running backs, good nucleus of wide receivers. Obviously, the offensive line needs fixed, and, you know, that's where we're going to start. We're going to start by evaluating what was done here in the past, how it was done, and at the same time evaluate the talent. And then it's our job as coaches to put these guys in position where they can be successful. I think it's also critical, you look at our offensive success that we had at Minnesota or at Kansas, it's critical that you feature your playmakers. And, you know, we've had a number of those guys the past few years. Anybody that watched football yesterday saw Marion Barber and what he did. Lawrence Maroney, two guys that were tremendous players for us. And, you know, so the task at hand is you know, to continue to develop the players, evaluate what direction we need to go and what we need to do to get this problem fixed. I'm smart enough to know in this business the future is now, probably as in yesterday. So there is a sense of urgency, and that's going to be our approach, that we're going to get this fixed and get it turned around and get it going in the right direction. I really believe this. If you want to be good on offense, you've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. There's no question on both sides of the football, from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. Fellas, it is tough enough to convert 1st and 10s, let alone convert in 2nd and 14s, 2nd and 15s, 3rd and longs, whatever the situation may be. So we are going to figure out a way and come up with a way and implement a system where we can control the line of scrimmage by hook or crook. It's also critical that we're good on 2nd and short and 3rd and short. And so in order to be good on those short yardage situations, you've got to be good at you got to be good on 1st down. And our goal is going to be to gain a minimum of 4 yards and come back 2nd and 6, and try to play for those 3rd and 1s and 3rd and 2s. you know, to me, it's a game about first downs. It's all about control and football, sustaining drives, moving the football, and somehow manufacturing offense. And the more first downs you can come up with, and the more drives you can sustain, you know, the closer to the vest you can play and score points. And so I think, you know, we're going to set some goals for our offense here, and some realistic goals, some goals that our players, I think, will sink their teeth into and buy into to help us accomplish the goal that we want to accomplish. So I guess at this time, if anybody has any questions.
Mitch, what is the process of getting an offensive line fixed? You know, as you start diving into here and looking at what you have, what's the process that's going to take place here to fix that?
Well, we're not the NFL, so we can't trade players. We can't cut them. We can't go out and draft them. We've got to coach the guys that we have in the program, and you know, Greg and I have done a lot of talking the last day or so. You know, I find it hard to believe that we can't come up with 5 guys that are good enough to play and win with at this level that are already in this program. So I think it starts with you have to develop the players you have, then you have to implement a system. You know, I think players go through a learning stage, and I know the offensive line here right now is, for the most part, fairly young, but I think, you know, it's got to be a system where players, number one, I think to be a great coach, you got to be a great salesman. You got to be able to sell to the players, and the players have to buy into what you're doing. Number two, I think that system has got to be simple enough that when those guys line up, that they can play as aggressive and as hard as they possibly can. It's awful hard to ask a player to play hard and play aggressive and play physical when he's not sure what he's supposed to do and how he's supposed to do it. And I think that's all part of the growth of a young player. I think he goes through that what stage, what am I supposed to do, and then he goes through that how stage, how am I supposed to do it? And if you're trying to do a lot of things on offense, then that minimizes the repetitions that you have at what you really need to be focusing on. So I think, you know, you have to minimize the techniques that each guy has at his position to get really good at something and have an identity.
What is the system? I mean, what system are you see that's going to fit here?
Well, I'm not sure of that yet because we haven't, you know, I haven't had a chance. I've seen Syracuse play live last year at Iowa, but I think that all depends on the talent. Obviously, it goes back. You have to be able to control the line of scrimmage. If you have opposite colored jerseys playing on your side of the line of scrimmage all day, you're going to be in for a long day.
Mitch, I know that in your resume you coached tight ends, and you're going to be coaching tight ends here, but I also know that you've coached offensive tackles. You're the offensive coordinator, but how hands-on are you going to be personally with the development of that offensive line?
I'll be directly involved. I think everything you do on offense starts up front. So, you know, we had a rule at Minnesota, you know, you can put up the best-looking pass play in the world, but if you can't protect it, what good is it? Everything that we do in a running game will start with a sound system and a sound scheme. Everything we do in the passing game, you know, if we can't protect it, we won't throw it. It's our job as coaches to figure out you know, what we have to do. I think really the only thing that we can ask the players, as long as those players are given the best possible effort and doing the best they can do, and that means on the field, off the field, socially, academically, that's all we can ask. It's our job to put them in a position where they can be successful and succeed.
Mitch, you got to construct something offensively that sort of form fits the dome, you know, indoors, controlled environment, flat surface, all that.
No, I don't think so. You know, we really never took that into account at Minnesota. I don't think so.
Is there something to playing in indoor stadiums, having done that at Minnesota all those years, and now coming to Syracuse and in the same type of building?
you know, to me, playing in a dome's really no different than outside, other than, you know, at times the noise becomes a factor.
It seems kind of odd that your next coaching job would be in a building like you had.
Yeah, it does. Extremely odd.
So what took you so long to get here? As Greg tells us that he's been after you since he got here.
Well, I can tell you this. You know, when Greg first came here, we had an awful good football team coming back to Minnesota. And, you know, I felt at that time we still had some things that we wanted to accomplish. Unfortunately, we didn't get them done, but we had some guys like Maroney and Barber and Gary Russell and Matt Spaeth coming back. And, you know, you kind of get emotionally attached to kids, and you commit yourself to kids. And so the timing wasn't right for me to come. And then last year, I guess, you know, we kind of got, you know, after our bowl game, we got fired. And, you know, it was really, to be honest with you, it kind of blindsided us. And I think the timing of that was not the right time either. But I think the timing's right now. I think this program is obviously had great tradition. You walk down the halls, you see the great players that have been here, and there's some awful good players in this program right now.
Coach, I knew at Kent State.
Yep.
Last time I saw you was in Kansas.
Last time I saw you was down in Iowa this past season.
I meant when you were working.
Oh, when I was working. Big difference. Yep.
And don't you see some kind of a likeness here from Kent State? I mean, all those damn programs would come where you went there, Coach.
Absolutely. You know, yeah, I've spoken to a lot of clinics across the country, and one thing I talk about all the time, because I think coaches, there are a lot more good coaches than there are good jobs. And when I talk about my resume, you look at my resume, and I always tell coaches, hey, I got more in common with you guys than what you think. Because when you look at my resume and you look at the powerhouse schools that I've been at, Kent State, Kansas, Minnesota, we've won at every one of those schools without cheating. And there's no reason why we can't do the same thing here. I think there's a good enough nucleus of good young players, good kids that want to win, that want to do the right thing. They're going to give you everything they have. It's up to us to put them in a position where they can be successful. Well, I think, you know, I think you have good enough players here. And then I think we can put a system in that, you know, I think starting with your quarterback. I think Andrew's, you know, obviously he's a tough kid. I think he's a great leader. When he steps in the huddle, he demands that presence. You know, there's good skilled players here with the receivers. We got to keep our fingers crossed. DeLon Carter, you know, DeLon Carter was a guy that I knew a lot about in high school. We didn't recruit him because we had Lawrence Maroney and Gary Russell coming back, and then Maroney decided to go in the pro draft after a bowl game, and Gary Russell had some academic problems. But DeLon Carter is a tremendous running back. There's also Hogue played at the end of the year, Brinkley. So there's some players there. You know, it's up to us to implement a system where we can move the ball, sustain drives, and score points. And I think we can do that here.
Mitch, you said winning is the future now. Does that remove any kind of luxury you might have in building something as opposed to fixing something?
No, I don't think so. You know, I think it's you know, I think football is really a pretty simple game when you look at it. And, you know, you have 11 on offense, you have 11 on defense, and you know, that hasn't changed since day number one. Obviously, the better players you have, the better chance you have of winning. But, you know, we're going to approach this thing like we're going to be here. But, you know, I'm going to say it again. You know, I don't see any reason why we can't develop momentum and put a system in where we can get this thing turned around and win some games next year.
Coach, how much are you looking forward to working with the young running backs that you have here, developing them even further?
Well, I'm looking forward to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to working with everybody. I mean, I think there's some talented running backs here that are capable of putting up some good numbers. I think there's some good linemen here. From what I hear, there's a couple good tight end prospects here. The wideouts, the quarterback. You know, I think the better that we can run the football, the better we'll throw it. The better we throw it, the better we'll run it. The two go hand in hand.
Mitch, we've talked a lot about the players. Is part of your job when you come in and you're going to evaluate your assistant coaches too? Does that process take place? Is that part of the deal too?
Well, I think, you know, I think all aspects of the program is constantly under evaluation, but the four guys, Chris White, Randy, Chris, and Phil Early, guys that I've known, spent time with, you know, I think, again, it goes back to us sitting down, and between the five of us, they're all good football coaches, putting a system together that we can sell to the players and the players buy into. And, again, I think obviously there's one thing that needs to change around here on offense, and that's the attitude of the guys up front. And, you know, when you pick up that newspaper and you constantly read about how terrible we are, pretty soon you have a tendency to start believing that. And, you know, those players see those student newspapers. Those players see that local newspaper. They read about, you know, how many sacks they've given up or what the score was or whatever. So, you know, we have to do a good job of brainwashing our players and getting our players to buy into what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. I think it always does, sure. That's why you see a lot of coaches when greatest story ever, Earl Briss sitting there at Illinois, 1982, getting ready to probably get fired if Illinois beats us. And he walks in and sees the assistant coach reading the paper, and the coach says, God, you can't believe what. Earl grabbed the newspaper and said, that newspaper scares you, don't read it. And that's the best advice I ever heard.
Mitch, I know that you learned last week I've been out of town. Where did you spend 2007 this past season?
I spent a lot of time traveling, visiting other staffs, other programs, both some high school, some smaller division schools, NAI school in Kansas. Spent some time at Wisconsin. Went down to Iowa at the end of the year, spent some time, spent a week at Ohio State. Spent a week with my brother at Edinburgh University. He's the head coach there at Edinburgh. So did some traveling. Both, giving advice, free advice. And, you know, it's amazing some of the ideas you pick up about how different teams practice, how they call plays, how they implement things.
You were doing this out of Minnesota? Is that where you were?
Yeah, I did it on my own.
Yeah. So you went out of your home in Minnesota, just traveled, came back, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You said you got blindsided, by what happened in Minnesota, so was that a reason why you were out of coaching for a year?
Well, I think the timing of the whole thing, and, you know, I don't think anybody would have anticipated us being fired after going to 7 bowls in 8 years and the success we had at Minnesota, but it happened.
How tough was that on you?
Well, I think, you know, the toughest thing on me probably was dealing with the free time, too much free time. But you know, if you know, and the uncertainty of everything, obviously was not fun to deal with, but I guess.
Did you have opportunities to coach last year, Mitch, or just didn't work out?
Really nothing worked out, you know, to suit what I was looking for.